Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and today, well, is a special day in Oregon because today is Oregon's birthday. 158 years old. Of course, the birth date was 1859. And on the 150th birthday of Oregon, former State Senator Jason Atkinson did a tour of the Capitol and all of the significant buildings and statues and items around and inside the building. And we thought on this day, on the 158th birthday, we would share that with you. So enjoy now a tour of your state capitol.
Well, the Capitol Mall is full of people. We have displays from all over Oregon. Over 3,000 Oregonians are here today to celebrate Oregon's 150th birthday. This is yours? Yeah. I'm Senator Atkinson.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Well, I lived in Southern Oregon for 10 years.
Whereabouts?
In Central Point.
That's right. Central Point. Just left there this morning, actually. Yeah, I drove one of these. Didn't you see me come up? Mr. President, the 35th Congress of the United States of America, at the second session, began and held in the city of Washington on Monday, the 6th day of December, 1858, an act for admission of Oregon into the Union. This is what it's all about. This is Oregon state government. Open to the people, for the people. Happy birthday. Come on up. From here up, there's 121 stairs, which is easy. If you haven't been shot.
Really can't go too fast at this.
Hi, I'm Senator Jason Atkinson, and welcome to your Oregon State Capitol. This year, 2009, is our 150th anniversary. It's our birthday. I want to show you around the Capitol. The Oregon State Capitol has a real special place in my heart, and I hope that after you see a few minutes of our history that you'll appreciate it with a whole new meaning yourself. We're right now on top of the state capitol. We're looking at Oregon's newest state park, which our Capitol Mall is, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But up here you get a really good view of the Pioneer Man, and you can notice that he is holding an axe in his right hand. He has a cover that some people would debate whether or not it's a cover of a wagon or if it's a tarp that he's using to sleep under. He was re-gilded by school children all across Oregon. Pennies, nickels, quarters. There was a drive to collect the money to have him re-gilded. The other interesting thing about him is that he is facing the west, which in the land of the pioneer for 150 years, people in Oregon have always faced west. This is the end of the Oregon Trail. This is the most fertile ground in the entire world, the Willamette Valley. And here we are, right in the center of it is our state capitol. The Oregon Capitol Commission, which raises money to protect the Capitol and the Capitol grounds, dedicated this wonderful Walk of the Flags that has become a real symbol not only of Oregon, but also of the United States. All 50 states' flags are there. The most interesting thing about this view of the Capitol is that the second Capitol building used to face this way, and the only thing left from that Capitol building are a couple of pillars that I'll show you in a moment, and that gazebo down there. If you look at the pictures when Teddy Roosevelt was here walking down the steps with Governor Chamberlain, you'll see that gazebo. The other interesting thing about this is more mythology, is that the shape of that fountain always has been said to be in the shape of Mark Hatfield's fraternity ring. That's not true, but it's really a good story. Just south of the Oregon State Capitol is Willamette University, which is the oldest private university west of the Mississippi. And just to the southeast of Willamette University is Mission Mill, which also still shows some of the original buildings that led to the Oregon State Capitol. One of the things that happened in the architectural style of Oregon was the separation of powers between the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches. When this Capitol building was built, one of the hottest debates was, should the judicial branch be under the same roof as the legislative branch? And the decision was made, and it was made very clearly, no, to keep the old Supreme Court. So you can't see it from here, and I'll show you later, but over there is the Supreme Court, which is in the same architectural style as the second Capitol building that burned down. See this grate right here? This isn't actually a grate. This is a skylight. When this building was opened to the public in 1938, right across the street there was a young Mark Hatfield who used to give historical tours of the brand new Capitol building. And he noted that in that time, the most beautiful part of this Art Deco Capitol architecture was the fact that natural light came through there and reflected off all of this brass. And it reflected all the way down to the basement, so that these old stairwells glowed. Last year, I held a brass polishing party where I got Brasso myself, put on coveralls, and started polishing this brass just to show people what over 40 years of neglect does and the acceptance of doing it the wrong way looks like. So one of the major pushes I have on restoring the old building is getting these skylights replaced and getting this brass polished. And it's just a matter of time because I will get it done.
I can't believe it. Way to go.
I made it. I made it. I made it. When I was first elected to the Oregon Senate, I had both my grandmothers come up to the swearing-in ceremony. One of them was a very liberal, Reagan-hating Democrat, and one of them was a very wonderful Republican. And they both came up, both my grandmothers, and I brought them to the front of the Capitol and I walked them in and I showed them the things that I'm showing you here. But they noticed that the concrete was cracked and the flowers weren't bloomed and there was porta potties on the mall, and they noticed that the carpet was orange and green and it looked horrible. And at the end of the day, I took them both to a nice dinner. They both pat me on the cheek, one Republican, one Democrat, and they said, "We're so proud of you, but you are going to get this cleaned up, aren't you?" And it's taken 8 years of my life, but we finally are getting this place cleaned up. This is one of the things I'm the most proud about. It took a lot of years and a lot of hard work, but we finally made these grounds a state park. And what that enabled us to do is use Measure 66 dollars to beautify these grounds. We have just started to take care of this as it should be taken care of as the people's building, and it's just fantastic. The Oregon Capitol Mall was created to showcase our entire state. So there's stepping stones along here that list all counties, all county seats, and some of them even show the history of Oregon. The first territorial governorship was offered to Abraham Lincoln, but it was Mrs. Lincoln who told old Abe that he just couldn't come out here. So see this guy right here? This is one of the main men who take care of our beloved Capitol building. This is Eric.
You are very kind, Senator. I certainly appreciate the kind words,
That's right.
sir.
You know what we're doing?
No.
We're doing a movie on appreciating the building.
Oh, well,
This is one of the key men who takes care of our building.
I am very honored. I will take those kind words all day.
This Douglas fir, the seed for this Douglas fir actually spent some time in space. This is Oregon's moon tree. The facade on the front of the Oregon State Capitol is truly beautiful, and it does show architecturally not only the period but also the story of Oregon, from Lewis and Clark, Sacagawea, Sacagawea's young son, Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, whose nickname was Pomp. You get a really good look of the history of Oregon and also the beauty of what this Capitol is all about. These pillars were found actually in Mill Creek before they were rescued and recognized for what they were. One of my favorite stories about this circuit rider was a debate I had with another senator. Years ago, we were on the floor of the Oregon State Senate, and the question was posed just like that circuit riding judge, to which I said, point of order. It's not a judge, it's a minister. And the other senator said, no, Senator Atkinson, you're wrong. To which I said, I request the presiding officer to halt deliberations until we send a page out to see who is right, Senator Atkinson or the other senator. So we stopped deliberations, sent an intern out here to transcribe the markings on this monument. And I'm happy to tell you that it's a minister. And what this is a circuit riding minister that went around and took care of his congregations in various parts of the brand new state, the state of Oregon. Let me show you the Oregon Supreme Court. You're going to love this. This is really cool. And the Chief Justice should probably show you this. But, you know, we're working on less than 24 hours, so I'll say I'm sorry. One of the most beautiful things about the Oregon Supreme Court is that this is the perfect example and completely maintained example of the second architectural style that was not only in the Supreme Court but also in the Oregon Capitol. This is, if you can imagine, this is the detail work that was in the second Capitol building. This is all we have left, but it's still one of the most beautiful institutions of Oregon government, and it's just a masterpiece. Yeah.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah. These are all of the Chief Justices that have served, signing their name in the dais of the Oregon Supreme Court.
Quite exciting.
Look at that. Who's this guy?
Yeah.
I love it. I just love it. What's so neat about this and the history of this is that these windows, again back to separation of powers, architecturally you have three branches of government, separate but equal. And it was designed that these big windows would look over one branch and one big branch would look at another. That's not by accident. So it's just fantastic. Not supposed to be real loud here, supposed to keep it kind of quiet, but this is the Oregon Supreme Court Law Library. On display here are some of the most priceless historical documents that we have, not only here in the Oregon Supreme Court, but also at the Oregon Archives building. On occasion we have rotating displays showing various things such as petition for admissions in 1861 to become attorneys. We also have things as historical documents going back to the time of our territory. And all of this history, all of it is open to the public. When Oregon became a territory, we adopted a motto which was, "She flies with her own wings." And you can actually see it in the seal. It's written in Latin, "Alas volat propius." She flies with her own wings. When we formally became a state in 1859, we changed the motto. This is the Oregon State seal. Earlier, when we were a territory, our motto was, "She flies with her own wings." In 1859, it was changed to the Union because Oregon sided with the North. This seal is actually the story of Oregon. You see 33 stars, which represent that we were the 33rd state. You'll see a wagon being pulled historically accurate by oxen, not by horses, but by oxen. You'll also see two ships. One of them, if you look closely, has a Union Jack flag, which is the British going out to sea. And just like our state song, Oregon, My Oregon, the Columbia carrying the flag of the United States is going towards the setting sun, going up the Columbia, claiming the territory for the United States. Also, you see in here is the same seal you'll see in a lot of seals and artwork into the federal government, the eagle representing peace through strength while holding arrows in its talons, and then certainly the olive branch. But you also see our trees, our elk, and then there's part of the seal that a lot of people disagree on, but I will always side with romance, and that is that the shape of the crest, is it the shape just by happenstance, or is it in the shape of a heart? Well, I will always side with the shape of a heart, because after all, Oregon's birthday is Valentine's Day.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Here in the Oregon Rotunda, there are 4 murals that tell the story of Oregon. This one is actually of Robert Gray, whose ship, the Columbia, landed at the mouth of the river as he's trading with Native Americans. Before the dams were built on the Columbia River, one of the most fascinating and beautiful places was Celilo Falls. This mural represents Lewis and Clark on their way to the Pacific in 1805 at Celilo Falls. The thing I love about the journals of Lewis and Clark is they write as closer they got to the ocean, the more well-dressed people were. In fact, they even noticed that some Native Americans were wearing blue topcoats that were probably traded 13 years earlier by Captain Robert Gray's ship and the men that served him. This mural depicts a first in Oregon history. In 1836, the first white women crossed the continent to come to the Oregon Territory, and here they're being greeted by the father of Oregon, Dr. McLaughlin. Of all 4 murals in the Rotunda, this one's by far my favorite because it's got everything. It's got families, it's got horses, and it's got a really great story. What would happen at the Dalles at this period of Oregon history is wheels would be taken off of the wagons, the prairie schooners as they were called, and they'd be floated the rest of the way down to Oregon City. Sometimes boys and men would take the stock, whatever was still alive after the long journey, and would lead the stock around Mount Hood and meet up with their families at Oregon City. So this is by far, for me anyway, a very meaningful mural. In the rotunda, inside the marble, you can actually see fossils. So here's 2 more guys that are taking care of the Capitol building. What do you think of the Capitol restoration project?
Oh, it's turned out just fine. Couldn't have picked better guys for the job.
That's a fact. Yeah, I'm really happy with the way it came out. They really needed it, and I think, you know, the members deserve it. So.
And it's going to be a privilege to maintain.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Welcome to the Oregon Senate. It's really a privilege to have you here, and it's really a privilege to serve here. Our chamber is in a very dark wood. It's very beautiful, and you'll notice from the carpet, everything reflects a piece of Oregon. Certainly from the salmon and the wheat, all the way to the names that surround the top of the chamber. The names up here, if you look, you will see last names that very closely mirror names of cities, counties, territories, forests, and in some cases schools. All of the names had a very big impact on the creation of Oregon, but in both chambers there's a few names of people who are up there but never came to Oregon. And up here, that's Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is on the wall of the Oregon State Senate because he had the foresight to arrange for the Louisiana Purchase, but he also sent Lewis and Clark. This is the gallery to the Oregon State Senate. People from all backgrounds, young and old, and all kinds of school children, will come up here to watch us make laws on behalf of Oregonians. One of the fantastic things about the state of Oregon is we are a very open government. We believe, as an ethic, that the more citizen participation that's involved, the better Oregon will be. I'm going to keep all this. Keep all that cleaned up. That's right. It's got to be perfect. This is an Oregon Senator's desk, and you'll notice that we have 1 chair for the member and 1 chair for a staff member, or in the case of the Oregon Senate, we can have 1 floor guest. The other thing that you'll notice is that we only have 1 button. That is a button that allows us to be signaled to the Senate President or the presiding officer to speak. This year marks the 150th birthday of the state of Oregon. As you look at this mural, this is very interesting because this mural signifies that news arrived to Salem that we became a state. Now, we became a state, as you see up here, on Valentine's Day, February 14th. We're the 33rd state, and it was arranged for news to leave Washington, D.C. and to arrive in Salem in 33 days. However, at the time, the Molalla River was flooded. And if you look up there, you'll see a horse, and that horse has got mud puddles signifying that very big storm that kept news from coming to Oregon. News actually arrived on Oregon a few days later than 33 days. It actually arrived on March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. At the end of each session, it's called sine die, or the end. And it's tradition that we conclude both the House and the Senate business at the exact same time. So the doors are opened, and what we do is we have a timing or a tradition that the Senate President and the Speaker of the House hit the gavel at the same time, which signifies the end. People line both of these chambers and line all the way out so they can see each other. The Senate President bends down, looks over at the Speaker of the House, and at the same time, they hit the gavel. This is my absolute favorite room in the entire Capitol. Come here and I'll show you why. Years and years ago, when the fire destroyed the second Capitol building, there was a young man who was going across the street to Willamette University, and he was a law student. And in order to pay his room and board, he worked at the firehouse. And at the firehouse, he would get called on to support himself and to put out fires. Well, when the fire broke out of the Capitol, he was called, and as fate would have it, a piece of cornice broke off and struck this young 23-year-old man from Hermiston and killed him. His name was Floyd McMullen. And what we've done is we've taken college students and interns and mainly the Senate floor staff, and we've had an informal college seminar here where we've discussed history, politics, and policy, and the people who shape it. And our secret society has been called the Floyd McMullen Fire Brigade in honor of Floyd McMullen. Each year, the Floyds, as they're called, will design their own pin. So this was the first year, the Floyd McMullen Fire Brigade, and this was a few years later. And on the day that we have the seminar, the Floyds will put the pin underneath their lapel and flash their secret Floyd sign across each other, signifying that today is a Floyd Seminar Day. In this room, we actually go on a premise that I'm trying to prove and have students disprove, and that is 10% of the Oregon legislature, I believe, holds the other 90% together. The office and the job of the Floyds is to prove me right, but if I am right, I want to know who they are. Remember how I told you this is the third Capitol building and the first two burned down, and this one was made out of solid marble so that it wouldn't burn? Well, last year, part of it did burn. I'd love to show you the governor's office, but it's been closed for renovation because last summer it did catch fire, and the historic conference room and the ceremonial office were greatly damaged. But don't worry, we'll have it cleaned up, and hopefully we'll get the governor back in here by the end of the year. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is how shiny all this brass should be. Some people called me old-fashioned, but I just believe so strongly that this Capitol should be beautiful. That's why I have a bill yet again this session to not only get the brass polished in the stairwells, but I want the doors polished, I want the doorknobs polished, I want anything that's brass in this building to be shined to perfection. Between both chambers, both the House and the Senate chamber, is the governor's office. And on the second floor, we have a tradition of posting framed portraits of people who have served as Oregon governor. Tom McCall, Oswald West, Governor Straub, Barbara Roberts have all served as our governor, and we honor them by hanging their portrait here in the Capitol. Welcome to the Oregon House of Representatives. Just like in the Oregon Senate, you have names around the top that represent names of important people here in Oregon. Again, we have a president whose name is there who never came to Oregon, John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams is on the wall of the House of Representatives. Although he did serve as 6th President of the United States, he's not up there for that reason. He's actually there because he had a main influence on the future of Oregon, which deserves major credit because he negotiated what ultimately became the area west of the Rocky Mountains for the United States, which later became Oregon. He led a delegation that negotiated the Treaty of Ghent, which ended the War of 1812. The mural up here is fascinating. In 1843, there was a vote taken in Champoeg, which today is a state park. And the vote was very simple. All you who want to be part of Great Britain, go stand over there, and all you who want to be part of the United States, go stand over here. That vote represents the beginning of Oregon because there were more settlers who wanted to be part of the United States than they wanted to be part of England. The Senate runs by different rules, and the House runs by very unique, different rules also. Over here, votes are taken electronically. The voting system is open for 30 seconds, and members push one button for yes or one button for no. Occasionally, though, members don't vote. And so what happens is the presiding officer, called the Speaker of the House, will read through the names in alphabetical order to describe and to get the votes from the state representatives. From the current governor to myself, even the president of the Senate and various members of Congress, a lot of people began their time in politics serving in the House of Representatives. And everyone agrees that this is the raucous caucus, meaning this is the place where the most action is and where a lot of candid behavior happens, if you know what I mean. In 2003, the Oregon legislature celebrated the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Public Accommodations Law. In 1953, State Representative Mark Hatfield led the effort to get this law passed, and seated in this picture from 1953, behind him are the delegates of the Portland chapter of the NAACP. The wonderful part of this story, not only was this a historic civil rights bill that was passed, but it's interesting to note that it took 17 sessions, close to 35 years of lobbying the Oregon House of Representatives to get this passed. This is the state song, which drives my 6-year-old crazy because I sing it to him to get him up in the morning to go to kindergarten. So I come into his room and turn the light on, he pulls the covers over his head, and then I go, "Land of the Empire Builders." One of the things that we had to make sure that we did was to mark everything in the same period. So you'll notice we have the Art Deco old Capitol building with the same period Art Deco fonts. Again, these are temporary, and someday the next senator following me will be here. But it's important to know that when people come to the Oregon legislature, it's a place of honor, it's a place that we take care of, and it's a place that Oregonians are proud of. You've heard me mention Abraham Lincoln a couple of times, how he was offered the first job as territorial governor, but his wife wouldn't let him come to Oregon. Later, he became the 16th president, the president who held the Union together, and he was eventually shot by a .44 caliber Derringer and killed. I've always said I had things in common with Abraham Lincoln. I too ran for governor and didn't win. And this last summer, you've probably noticed me walking with a cane. I was shot by accident by a .38 caliber Derringer. So at least I have a few things in common with the former president. But I will tell you that there is a stream of history that runs through everyone who serves in the Oregon legislature. No two stories who arrive here are the same. Everyone has a personal journey, and it really is a privilege not only to serve here, but to uphold the Constitution, to uphold the People's Chamber, and to restore honor and respect to public service. I'm Jason Atkinson. I really appreciate you joining me. Please come by the Capitol anytime, any time of the year, and see it for yourself. It's a Capitol worth protecting, not only for now, but for generations to come.